Awesome, Dragoon. Um, I hope so, Mafia. I've been hoping so for years. Anyways, so yeah, I absolutely love this, and I can't give that a plus by itself, because that's just a variance between this game and the SNES English version, but I will say it's something I definitely like about this. One other thing I want to go into really quick, they went above and beyond with some of the detail with regards to the terrain in this game. Now, obviously, I've praised Square's sprite work for years. In fact, I did that on both previous games. I've done an in-depth review of. But look at the screen right now. We've got this little pattern that's been woven into the rug. Now, I point this out because this is what I like, okay? Let me explain what I mean by this. In more modern games, and this is true even in some of the games I truly love, I'm looking at you, FF9, Square likes to go way over the top when it comes to detail. Some screens are so busy, have so much going on, and there's so many things everywhere that it just becomes noise, right? You know what I mean, don't you? However, I do think details should be there. I don't think everything should be completely basic and empty. Then you just have, like, the empty room problem. So I like the fact that there's like, for example, you can see the tiles have, like, discoloration on them. So you can see that they've been worn and they've been there for a while. You can see the fact that there's you can, like, see the fabric on the edges of the carpet, you know? But it's not busy. It's just detail. You with me? And I really like that. I really like that added attention to detail. Now, it's funny you say that, Shiryu, because I've thought about that myself, and I've actually believed, now that I think about it, there is basically one character, well, that's a lie, there are two characters in this entire game who are just plain evil, without something corrupting them or affecting them or whatever. Dr. Luge, you know, the Hojo prototype, and Zemus himself. But I'm getting off topic. So, a moment, my lord. And again, Bagan is respectful. He is polite. He is exactly what a Chancellor should be. This is another example of the detail thing, by the way. Look at the cobblestone. Look at the swords. Look at the inlay on the pillars. The pattern on the candlesticks. All of this is just some really phenomenally awesome detail without getting too busy. So I think this definitely deserves a plus to graphics. Specifically this version. Again, because this is the one we're reviewing, the Steam version. So yeah. So, does it now? Indeed, your loyalty are proven, and worth are proven once again, Captain Bagan. By the way, this is an interesting point of note. For the longest time, people, such as myself, didn't actually know if Bagan was his title or his name. Captain Bagan makes it more clear that Bagan is actually the guy's name. So, that little mystery solved. The crystal's all that matters. Bring him before me, as you wish. Another subtle touch here that I believe was done on purpose. No one in... Well, okay, I'll get into it just a minute. Just remind me to talk about the soldiers, okay? Shut up, Sigma. Have you not seen any of my in-depth reviews? So, the Kingdom of Baron hails your return, Cecil. In other words, very formal, but still polite. Still not, you know, evil. Theoretically, a captain should be below a Lord Commander, yes. Because now, okay, this is variable based on the culture. I mean, there's not exactly... We don't know the actual, exactly what the hierarchy is, excuse me, hierarchy of Baron is, but in most cultures, if you have affixed the word Lord to your title, it's not actually a higher title, it's more like an additional title, so he is a commander and a lord, hence Lord Commander. So in other words, he is part of the nobility, being the adopted son of the king, and therefore being part of the, I can't think of the term for it all of a sudden, but, you know, the landed, basically, and also being a commander. So so in the military, Cecil would probably be lower in rank than Bagan, but in the political situation, he would be higher in rank. Make sense? Gotta love this game. Relinquished the water crystal. It is genuine, your majesty. So it is. See how it shines. That will be all, Cecil. You may leave us now. it is also murky when you kind of cross between navies and armies and whatnot. So this scene is so awesome in the DS version. I love the translation. Have you some other matter to discuss? Again, polite. You know, not like, oh my god, what? What is it? You know. I know it is not my place to ask, your majesty, and I pray you forgive my indiscretion, but what is it you aim to do? Your ways are not as they once were. My men's hearts grow heavy with misgiving. And the king says, as does yours? And Cecil says, no, I would never doubt you. Do you take me for a fool, Cecil? Do you think your treasonous whisperings escape my ears? After all I've done for you, Cecil, you wound me. Now this line is also important. For those of you not aware, again, adoptive son. The king of Baron, the real king of Baron, actually raised Cecil. Found him in the woods. Well, okay, his soldiers found him in the woods, but he actually ended up raising him as his own. And so that explains a lot of the characterization that went into Cecil prior to the beginning of the game, which I'll talk about later. So he says right here, you know, I cannot place my trust in those who offers none in return. I hereby relieve you of command of the Red Wings. Also, what we just saw is how you do a no-music cutscene properly. Come on, Square, you used to do this, right? I'm sorry, again, I've been playing Kingdom Hearts 2 lately. It's been driving me insane. Yes, it is, John, and I'm debating when a good time to talk about that will be. You'll notice there's no queen, too. But anyways, so this is how, you know what, I'm just going to give this a plus, because this deserves a music and sound plus, because this is how you do a no-music cutscene. You leave everything quiet until you have something impacting, and then you start the music, or you start with the music, and then you have something impacting, and then it goes to quiet. You do not have an entire freaking cutscene play in total freaking silence! I hate you, Kingdom Hearts! Hi, Silent Martyr, what's up? God, it drives me batty! I love Kingdom Hearts, but it's just every other cutscene. It's so continuous, it's so repetitive, that you just constantly have this silence. Deacon, if you need questions answered, ask. Otherwise, it's just up to you to make your character. I did a post about your ship. I hope you saw that. Anyways, hi, Silent Martyr. Welcome to actually being able to hear me. No, I disagree with that, Shadow, because that's... Oh, you mean in Kingdom Hearts. Yeah, okay, I'll agree with that. Kingdom Hearts. Not here. Not here. Because, again, the punch point in, and he's like, you have been relieved from command. And it's like, what? And that's kind of a big deal. Hell, that is a big deal. There we go. Now... Yeah, me too, Samurai. Anyways, you may go to the Valley of Mist instead. There's a task I would have you do. A phantom creature haunts the border of that land, the Eidolon of Mist. You will slay it and deliver this ring to the village that lies beyond. They will know its meaning. Be gone at first light on the morrow. Love that dialogue. So much more nuance comes across in that dialogue than in the original SNES version. Because notice how he says it. There's no sinister intent here. You need to kill a monster that's on the border between us and them, and then give them this gift. If you didn't know that he's evil, if you didn't know that this was some horrible plan, you would assume, or at least you probably should assume, that this is a quest to go ahead and deal with something on their border, and then give them an offering of peace or friendship or whatever to solidify that border, to ensure that the northern border is secure. It makes so much sense as to why both Kain and Cecil didn't question this mission at all throughout the entire course of it. These are two trained career soldiers, officers, no less. Officers and soldiers, actually, because both of them can fight in addition to lead. Remember, Kain is the head of the Dragoons, as well as Cecil, head of the Red Wings. But anyways, whoops. Speaking of Kain, also known as the Dragoon, it is actually funny how many the characters are in FF4. But again, that's that archetype thing again, isn't it? The Dragoon and the Paladin standing next to each other there. Now, what Aguiar points out is a fascinating thing that I think is a subtlety that's done on purpose. In other words, this could be a situation in which you could just send anyone. Like Aguiar says, you could just send a group of petty soldiers. You could just send whatever people you have lying around in order to go deal with this situation, but you don't. You send the Lord Captain, excuse me, the Lord Commander, and And as it will turn out, you'll send the cane. But the point is, you send these two significant people on this mission to signify how important it is. In fact, let's just talk about this for a moment, because I love this. Oh, I did too, Fearsome. I was really upset when I hit the Village of Mist and was like, what? No, 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 no! And then you see Rydia and her dead mother, and I just stopped. I just put the controller down for a bit. First game that really hit me like that, like I said earlier. Anyways, so, first of all, what we have here, let's move on in the dialogue a bit. Blah, 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 blah. So, from our perspective, we are being sent there in order to secure our northern borders, which makes sense, especially to send the officers. Okay, I thought there was going to be voice actor for a second. From the perspective of the king, it makes sense to send him in order to test his loyalty, which also means it makes sense to Cecil that he would be sending him specifically in order to test his loyalty, in order to ensure that, okay, well, you have to prove now that you are worthy of going back to the Red Wings. That's also what Cain himself says, by the way. You know what, I don't want to go into full details. The point being, there's quite a few nuances that go into why you would send the king's adopted son and the lead dragoon of the entire nation, on this mission. It adds weight to it. The final nuance I want to point out in that is that it makes perfect sense from the perspective of Kainazo, because you want to send people who are most likely to not be under your control away, and on a mission like this, an evil mission. In other words, you're determining if they're going to stay loyal and stay evil, or if they're going to turn on you and you have to deal with them, and B, you're ensuring that they're being tossed into danger where they might be dealt with anyways, one way or another, leading to your net positive in service of your master, who is not Golbez. So yeah, there's Cain, you'll be back in charge in no time. And yeah, basically every item in the game has been retranslated, and virtually all of the dialogue has also been retranslated to make things more subtle, make things more nuanced, make things less blatantly obvious, and make things make a little more sense. Again, the Carnelian signet, that's another thing. Sending this signet, am I saying that right, with you, implies that there is some kind of diplomatic or political purpose behind it other than just, here's a ring of bomb! Okay, so here we are. In the castle. So, this right here gets a huge plus. A gargantuanly huge... You know what? No. This gets 2 story positives. Now I gotta explain myself. You see that? You see that thought bubble right there? First story positive. It adds to the story of the game. You get additional dialogue that is fully optional, that you can do or not do on your own purview from each character in your party at your own disposal whenever you want to. And there's quite a lot of it. There is a huge amount of thought bubble dialogue in this game. You can check it virtually constantly, and it's awesome. Point 2 of why the thought bubble the second positive that thought bubble gets, it really helps. It's from a writing perspective. I like how Leslin's and Enigma both had the same joke there. It's from a writing perspective, this gets across a huge bonus to the writers. In other words, so often when you're doing a story, all you have is the third-person perspective. Third-person limited. If you don't know what that means, imagine you're like a camera. Then you're just floating around. We don't actually have Cain yet, Sean, but we will in a second. Don't worry. Imagine you're a camera, and you're just kind of floating around, following around the characters, right? So you don't know the truth, if you understand what I mean. You don't know what the characters are really thinking. You don't know if what they say is honest. You don't know if what they say is the real thing. You don't know how they're actually feeling. Does this make sense? However, when you show what a character is actually thinking, when you show what a character is actually feeling, it gets across more detail that you wouldn't otherwise be able to get across. And having it be specifically thought bubbles, so we know this is what they're thinking, shows us the truth about what they are, so it's not left up to speculation. And again, I point to the fact that because of the DS version of FF4, we finally know what was going on with Kain. If it wasn't for those thought bubbles, we had been debating for years as to whether or not Kain was always mind-controlled, or if he had been freed and then re-mind controlled. And thanks to the thought bubbles, we know the truth, because we could see his thoughts, his perspective on the matter. No lies. No subtleties. No deceptions, right? So that's why that is 2 bonuses for the thought bubbles. Thank you very much. And yeah, actually, I'm going to agree with Samurai. It is nice to have some things internalized rather than the monologue thing that, let's be honest, most... See, okay, this is my first positive. The reason I gave it that first positive. But to explain a little bit better, most writers, and Square is actually very guilty of this, if they want to get across what a character's feeling, they'll have them say what they're feeling. Showing their thoughts is another way of doing that, and the third and most difficult way of doing that is actually showing how they feel through their actions, or through their expressions, or through their voice actors, or whatever. So. Anyways. Let's see what we got here. Whoa, that's... Okay, hey. I've been playing Kingdom Hearts lately, so cancel is select. Okay, so... Oh, that's nice. That's really nice. Oh, I like that. Subtitles on. Ooh, we can change the window. Ooh. Ah, it's not fancy. We'll go with silver. Exactly, Deacon. Very true. Very true. Okay, so... That's... You know what? That's actually a really good point. I think we are going to give another positive for the settings. The fact that you could just play this game on silent, like this. Or... with just the music, like this. Yeah! Absolutely. That is... I would never do that, personally, but you know my feelings. Options are good. Having options in a game, allowing you to play it your way, that's important to me. I think we are going to give our second plus to gameplay. Actually, let's go ahead and put that under sound for the sound design. Our fourth bonus to sound design for the optional voice acting, for the optional sound effects, for the optional music. Yes. Options good. Now... The menu isn't too bad. Now, this is actually interesting, because okay, in the original, as you probably know, in the original FF4, you had 2-4, 3 aft, or 3-4, 2 aft. You always had the 5 offset formation, right? If I'm not mistaken, and we will check, I'm not going to give a positive or a negative, but if we have the option, I think we can have that regardless. We could have 5 in the back or 5 in the front if we wanted to in this version. We'll find out for sure. I don't actually remember off the top of my head. You see this button right here? This is called the Optimize button. Now, I know this is funny, because I've given this plus to the previous 2 games we've looked at, but it still deserves its plus. The Optimize button is an amazing thing. It is not definitive, but it looks at the basic stats of the items and says, here's the best gear, stat-wise, that you can equip right now. Bam! And then you just hit it, and you're equipped, and you're done. That is still a positive. I really don't feel like I need to even explain that. Bam, 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 bam. So, and if you feel like equipping specific things, you can still do that. So that is still good game design. What else? Hang on. Then I can't call that a plus, Gear. That should be default, in my opinion. You're absolutely right. In fact, it would be a negative if I was doing a review of the SNES version, because not showing the stats is genuinely a huge negative for the SNES version. In some cases, the stats... I mean, I didn't even know for years and years and years that certain equipment in the SNES version gave you, like, immunity to status effects, for example. I didn't know that, because because nothing shows it. There's no tooltips for it. So I can't give it a positive that it has something that should be a default. I would be giving it a negative if it doesn't have it. Make sense? Okay, so this is another really nice thing. I'm debating if it deserves a positive, but it is a nice thing nevertheless. Obviously, in a SNES game, which is a agreed, absolutely. By the way, Deacon, absolutely agreed. If you're playing a SNES game or any tile-based game, you don't have to worry about whether or not you're in front of something to select it. You can tell. You can just hit it and go. You know, like this, chunk, chunk, right? But in a game where you have a more mobile grid, like most 3D games, it's nice having that right there. You see that? This lets you know there's something here you can interact with. If I don't remember if this is true for chess or not. If it is, we'll give it a positive. But at the very least, it's nice to see, hey, I can interact with this, on the off chance that you're glancing at it, or you're not seeing it properly, or you're colorblind, or whatever. So you can actually see, haha, I can talk to this. You with me? We'll find out very shortly if I can interact with that way chests. I just gotta say, in the exact same manner that I really enjoyed the 600 AD dialogue in Chrono Trigger, I really like the flavor they put into the dialogue translation in this game. For example, rumors swarm about His Highness like so many flies, but I shudder to think what would happen if he were to catch wind of them. If you don't understand, people don't talk like that anymore. That is unique. Well, it's not unique, but it's different sentence structure. It gets across that feeling of older. You know. Now, again, some people don't like that because of the old English thing. In fact, actually, to quote an actual translator who has done some work for Final Fantasy IV, he feels that FF4DS is a little bit too flowery in its speech. I disagree. I love the flowery speech, but that's preference. I'm not going to give it plus. I'm not going to give it minus. Except I totally am going to give it a plus. You thought I wasn't going to give a plus to this game. No, seriously. The reason I'm giving it a plus is for the translation itself. The translation of this game deserves a plus. I don't even feel like I need to explain that. The translation deserves a plus. Bamf. The end. Moving on. It's really well translated. It is very well in fact, the actual word I should be using is localized, because it's not just translating. And some of you who've worked in this know what I'm talking about. It's all about shifting from a cultural perspective, because certain things simply will not work to another culture. So you don't just have to translate the words, you have to translate the intent, the meaning, and you have to interpret that. Hang on just a second. I just noticed that because of our crash earlier... Yes, that was OBS crashing, by the way. We lost the greatest thing ever. Hi. Just gonna put him back here. There we go. Golbez is watching you. Perfect. Okay. It does in a couple cases, Samurai. Not as well as FF9. Not as often as FF9. FF9 had tons of different dialogues in it, and it was amazing. But FF4 only has a couple. For the most part, people talk like this, the old, the flowery speech, the Shakespearean speech. There is a little bit of difference. For example, Yong is actually a really good example of someone who speaks with excessive formality. I guess that's all I got. Hang on, I just realized I can make a really cool image here if I fiddle with this a little bit. There we go. Get the double moons behind Golbez. That is perfect! Sorry. Moving on. Okay. So let's talk to the Dragoons here. Nice little details. I've already given it a plus for graphics design. Kane's like, what is it? This is all my doing, forgive me. Told you there's nothing for you. What's wrong? It's not like you to act this. I did not train in the way of the dark sword so I could steal from innocence, Cain. I trained because His Majesty asked it of me. You mustn't blame yourself for the orders you were given. Our king had his reasons, I'm sure of it. I envy you, game. This cutscene is new to the DS version. Cecil, you saw me. Yeah, the DS translation is amazing. The localization is amazing. I saw the openings you left. How do you expect to lead the Dragoons if you cannot guard your own flank? My father's blood is in me. I will lead the Dragoons. Have no fear of that. Oh, by the way, the DS version is when they officially decided to connect FF2 and FF4 for some reason. Establishing the rivalry and friendship, frenemies, I suppose, between Cecil and Cain. Nice little additional thing there. Let's go ahead and discuss a few things. I know, it's all I do. But seriously, I'm not just reviewing the game, I'm talking about it too. Because of the DS version, we don't 100% sure know a few things. First of all, was it Kainazo, or was it King Baron who asked Cecil to master the Dark Sword? Now let's make one thing clear. The Dark Sword is not evil. It is inclined to evil, but it is not evil. Yes, that's right, FF4 was doing the dark is not evil thing, probably before basically everything else was. I mean, I guess Star Wars actually was there first, but you get my point, right? This is an old theme, is what I'm trying to get across. Now, the darkness that they wield, they make it very clear that the darkness is actually inclined towards evil, because you're more likely to take aggressive actions, or you're more likely to do things in a violent manner, because you are wielding darkness rather than whatever else. However, at no point in time is it implied that Cecil is actually being corrupted by the darkness he is wielding. It is also further implied that that darkness does, however, make it more likely for you to be affected by things who can control that darkness, which is exactly how Golbez was mind-controlled by Zemus. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My reason for bringing all this up, though, is I actually personally think that King Baron is the one who actually asked Cecil to master the Dark Sword. Because as we see throughout this game, in gameplay and in lore, the, lol, that's regime. In gameplay and in lore, the Dark Sword is basically just another profession, basically. It's a specific form of knighthood. And in fact is something that we will be seeing in several Final Fantasies after this as far as class design. The one that I think it most exemplifies what I'm talking about is actually Final Fantasy Tactics. So again, who actually asked him to do that, we don't know. The next question, with regards to that, we don't actually know how... Well, okay. I think I'm going to save that discussion for a little bit later. Also, tutorialization through gameplay. It's literally right here. You can see the chests right there. Now, this is an interesting question. You can okay, so even in the so in the SNES version, you can see this entire room on a single screen. In the DS version, it's several screens wide. In fact, let's just kind of look at this here. So we've got, like, if we're on the left, so that's one screen. There's the second screen. There's the third screen. So this is like 4 screens wide on the DS version. Roughly 4 times the size. The point, though, is you can clearly see, you know, that there's a room up there, and you can clearly see that there's treasure chests in it. And this gives you the idea of exactly how switches work, so that in later dungeons and whatnot, you can understand that there is hidden treasure. Tutorialization through gameplay. So, yeah, that's, I'm debating if I want to give that a positive or not. I'll debate that a little bit more, but it's certainly not a negative. Yeah, sorry, my accent literally changes its mind on whether I want to say Zemus or Zemus. I have no control over that. Also, occasionally it's Zeromus or Zeramos. Zeramus. I tend to vary on that one. I feel so bad for Sid's workers. Also, that's the tower where the actual King of Baron is, so makes sense that he would seal that off. Also, I like this. We can see Baron's royal crest right there. I already kind of gave, you know, my reasoning for liking the graphics and the style of the design, but I just want to re-emphasize it. I love the work on the bricks. Look at that. Not every brick is the same color. You can see the discoloration. You can see the subtle differences. It's not solid, like, lines like it would be in some other lazier RPGs. You actually see, like, some curvature of it, like you would in actual bricks, because actual bricks are not 100% smooth, right? They're not 100% lines. They're not linear. I don't know the word I'm looking for. But I like that brick design. It's really, really nice. I think I do agree, Silent Martyr. I've been debating it since I pointed it out. I think I do agree that gameplay tutorialization, to help you get used to some of the concepts of the game... uniform! Thank you, they're not uniform. That's exactly what I wanted to say. Getting you used to the ideas of the game, I think that is something that deserves to be positive. Even though it's kind of standard, I do think that actually is. And yes, I am Shadow. Have you ever done sprite design? Have you ever done art design? Do you know how hard it is to sit down and draw 20 or 30 bricks? I'd say, you know what, let's actually pull up a... Where's a wall? Where's a wall? Okay, that's a bad example, because that's actually a single texture. Let's go back and fanboy over some bricks. Just for you, Shadow! Also, politics. Sorry, I shouldn't laugh. We're gonna fanboy over some bricks just for Shadow. We're gonna count. I want you to picture what this is like. You should know. You do audio design. Okay, so... looks like 2 patterns that I'm seeing right now. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. 27 bricks per pattern. 27! I want you to picture sitting down with pixels to work with, and making 27 distinct from each other bricks, and making each one look like it's just a brick. Do you understand how hard it is to do something and artificially and make it look normal? Do you know how hard that is to do? I do, because I've frickin' done it. I know several of my viewers have too. It is not easy. It takes work and effort and practice and redoing it 50 dozen billion jillion times. I am a huge fan of that attention to detail. Look at the cobblestone. Look at that. Again, non-uniform, non-static, different colorization. There's even, like, you can even see some of the texture of the stone looks like stone. Yeah, you know what? I agree with the arrows. And yes, making something like that blend between the texture of the borders is very difficult to do. So, you know what? Yes, that's right. We're giving this game another plus. This is the last plus I'll give it for the texture design, but it absolutely deserves it. The attention to detail is phenomenal. Matrix Software knows what they're doing. God, I would have killed to have Matrix Software make FF5 and FF6 DS. I would have loved it. Oh. Okay, I said I'd stop talking about the graphics, and I was wrong. You see these little... This is awesome, this is so great. Okay, so there's these little windows, right? Well, when you get in here, you notice that you can see this tiny little bit of window right there. You see that on the left? And this section of the stairs is lighter because there's a little bit of sunlight coming in from that tiny little window. Look at it. Look at it. It's so quiet and so subtle, you should never notice it. But it helps flesh it out. That's exactly what good graphics design is. You should never notice it unless you're looking. But if you're looking, you can see it, and blah, blah, blah. How's the audio, by the way? I have it set a little higher than normal because of the DS thing. So let me know how the audio balance is, because I've been talking over the song like this whole time. Sizzle! It's Rosa, who is the white mage. The white mage, the white mage. Sarah Garnet. Seriously, Rosa is like the white mage to me. The only actual competition for white mage is Minwu, in my mind. I could turn down the music in the options. Hey, screw you, Enigma. Oh, ha-ha, Sigma. Here, we'll turn it down a couple points there, like that. Why a bikini? I don't know. I mean, it doesn't bother me that much, but I will have to admit, I don't get her design. Then again, Rydia does it too. And Rydia's much younger. Even adult, excuse me, Rydia is much younger. Wait a minute. Hang on. Something's now wrong that was not wrong before. Oh, okay, I see the problem. It might be a negative. Bricks! Look! It's a different type of brick! Look at this! Look at the bricks! Look at them! Shut up, Sigma. I will say that I like the additional details of making the prison look, well, you know, horrible. In case you guys think I'm brickist, I will say the attention to detail on the wood in the background there for the cots is really good, as well as the sheets. And here's yet another example of the Baronian crest. You know what's going to be funny is later on we're probably going to see different bricks, and I'm just going to explode with joy. That's an interesting question, Fitzcott. I could speculate on why Golbez would bring them back, but I think it's more likely that they were brought back because that's typical military doctrine. You kill the ones you can, you capture the ones who don't, and you could use them as political bargaining chips. I don't think they realized they weren't actually a normal kingdom at this point in time. That's my take on that. Hey, Brick Fanboy. You know, these are the best bricks. Look at those bricks. Actually, I really hate to point this out, but these bricks we're standing on now are yet another different type of bricks. I mean, tiles, really, but, you know, whatever. Where's Sid? Sid! Sid! Hey, Sid! You look horrifying. But then you always have. Alright. the Brick Runner. I will say, I like how they weave a decent amount of... I like the fact that they weave a decent amount of exposition into Cid's distant dialogue. He's a little obtuse about, or obvious, excuse me, about some things, but in other cases he just weaves it nicely in. Like talking about how much he cares about Rosa and his obvious familial feelings of fatherly protection towards his daughter. Later on, we find out he actually does not have a wife currently. We don't know if he never had a wife or if he simply, you know, lost her. But it's a nice little touch. It also explains his protectiveness over the party in general, but I've always gotten the perspective personally that most of the times he helps the parties because of Rosa. Not in any romantic way, but because of that fatherly, you know, I want to take care of her because I look at her as my surrogate daughter kind of perspective. By the way, I could point out that Rosa's father is definitively dead, as we find out later, because he was a soldier who died in battle. So another little niggle of character development there. Here's the soldiers who are recovering. Hey, the moment I see another brick thing, we'll go ahead and add another positive. This is a nice touch that was not in the SNES version, like, at all. The soldiers are getting drunk. In fact, he flat out says it. We cannot erase the memories of what was done in Visidia, but we can drown them. And there's bottles of booze there. And they're clearly sprawled out and drunk. Nice touch. Very nice touch. To emphasize how much the common soldiers do not like what's happening in their country. And once again, emphasizing something that Square usually does pretty well. This is a really nice brick. I'm kidding. Seriously, this is a really nice Baronian crest there. That's just awesome. Especially since, like, it serves no purpose. We'll never be up here. In fact, this is a totally optional area that has no treasure and no story scenes. Yeah, anyways. Well, actually, we do know they murder them later, Netherzim, but I wasn't going to get to that yet. So, words. Something Squaresoft usually does well is the gray versus gray. In other words, or I guess I should say did, past tense, but whatever. The implication that even though, you know, the Empire, excuse me, the Kingdom of Baron may be overall an evil force, there are people within the Kingdom of Baron who do not agree with that, who do not acquiesce to that. This is something they did a lot in FF6 as well, and do a little bit in FF5, and FF7, and FF8, etc., etc. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and give this a plus. I'm not going to give it yet. I'm not deciding what category it's going to get into. But this is absolutely a plus. You ready for this? It's Naming Way. For those of you not aware, Naming Way is a rabbit-like creature. Would you believe I didn't know this for years? Upon years? Upon years? The original SNES sprite was never that distinct for me, so I just kind of assumed it was this vaguely, you know, alien-looking thing, and blah, blah, blah. Yes, I did, the geek. What I did not know was that, yeah, he's basically designed based off of the Moogles. So are all the Lunarians of that variety. Could someone get rid of that pod, please? So, seeing this the first time I saw this, I was just like, whoa! Who is that? And he's like, it's Naming Way! I also mentally associate Naming Way with Nobuo Uematsu forever, because this is the one sprite he chose to represent himself. But anyways, so he travels the world, bestowing new names upon those dissatisfied with those they currently possess. But as of late, I find fewer and fewer wishing to take advantage of my renaming services. Won't you try a new name for size? Of course I will. Now, for those of you not aware, in the original SNES versions, and the GBA version for that matter, you could rename all the characters, and I frequently did, as I do in every game that I could rename them. You cannot... The first Final Fantasy that did not let you rename stuff was Final Fantasy X. In FF10, they did not allow you to rename anyone except for Tidus and the summons, and they simply never said those names out loud. The reason they don't allow renames in that kind of situation is because of names, because of voice acting. Certain games get around the name and voice acting thing by giving you a title. You know, The Warden, or Hawk, giving you a last name. Mass Effect did this as well. Shepard. I like how emoticons are not allowed is actually a thing there. Anyways, so FF4, this is great. FF4 is looking at the situation like, well, we can't... Okay, we have options, right? We could get rid of Naming Way. That would be terrible. We could allow them to rename him, but then the voice acting will be off. We could alter the voice acting to always call him Lord Captain instead of Cecil, or something like that, but that would also be off. So they decided to go with this option. You see, when you try to rename it, and... There we go. We'll rename it, Bobberson. Whoa, we'll drop our controller, first thing we'll do. Shoot, we may have just lost our controller, because we unplugged it. Okay. Okay. So we will rename our character. As soon as it... Come on. It was working a second ago. God damn it. I really don't want to restart my entire computer because I accidentally unplugged my controller. Because I dropped it. Can I use the keyboard? Yes, I can use the keyboard for the moment. So you rename it, and he actually spoilingly says you cannot rename your name. It's almost as though his existence serves no purpose. A naming way who cannot change a man's name is no naming way at all. I believe it is time I embarked on a new journey to find my new place in the world. Until we meet again, farewell. In other words, they actually tried to weave in the fact that you can't rename in this game into the story in a flavor way. It's not relevant to the plot, but it is in the story, it is in lore, that Naming Way, the guy who went around renaming people, can't do it anymore. And I think that's phenomenal. Yeah, controller is flat gone. Whatever. Keyboard time. So, I think we're going to go ahead and give that a plus to gameplay and story. For gameplay and story integration. Actually, no. We'll just give that a plus to gameplay for weaving that in there. Candle work, lighting work. Let's see if I can figure out what accept button is on the keyboard. By the way, we have a servant and live in a castle. Or, excuse me, we have a servant, live in a castle, in a tower. Some people have asked why it is Cecil becomes King of Baron after the course of this game, forgetting the fact that Cecil is quite literally next in line to the throne. We were going to become king no matter what, whenever Baron kicked the bucket, but anyways. Nice flowers there on the thing, along with a little sheaf of paper and a sheaf of parchment and a quill. That's nice. Just pointing out the little details, like I do. Voice acted cutscene. Yeah, he is literally a non-lineage prince. There's actually a term for that, and I forget what it's called.
Your Majesty, what's become of you?
By the way, twin moons.
Where is the noble knight, the man who took me in as an orphan and raised me as his own? The strong, just king I once knew. Is a crystal worth all this? Robbing a peaceful people of what's theirs by right. What need could be so great? King's orders or no, there's no forgiving what we've done.
Cecil? Won't you tell me what happened? First you're sent off to Mysidia, and now to hunt some beast again so soon? Did something happen in Mysidia?
No, it's nothing.
Then why won't you look at me?
In Mysidia, We stole a crystal from people who had done no wrong. I've worn this darkened armor for so long now. There's no mote of light left in me.
I'm just going to pause to point out that I personally don't think he means that literally. I think his point is that basically that he's trying to get across the point that he is, well, he's a coward, basically. That he is so trapped in his own inability to act in honor of his conscience, which he has, that he is a worse person for it. Now, it is worth noting, it is entirely possible that the dark armor, the dark sword he wields, is literally corrupting him. We don't know. And given FF4's theme, it would actually make sense if he was literally being corrupted by it, because of the fact that, as I mentioned earlier, there are only 2 individuals in the entire game that I can think of off the top of my head who are evil or bad without actually having some kind of corruptive influence. So it is possible that he is being influenced by it as well, and the only reason that he hasn't completely descended at this point in time is because he's frickin' Cecil, the Paladin.
Not even in my heart.
You're a good man, Cecil.
I'm a coward. A coward who cannot even defy orders he knows he ought not follow.
Cecil of the Red Wings is many things, but he is no coward. Not the Cecil who I love. The king is sending you to Mist to slay the Eidolon, isn't he? If anything were to happen to you, I couldn't...
Cain will be with me. I'll be fine. It's late. You should get some rest.
Be careful.
Thank you, Rosa. But I know what I've become.
In case you're wondering why I call it Eidolon, that's why. Instead of Eidolon, or the other ways to pronounce it. Shoot, wait, I have things to talk about! Stop interrupting me. I have things to talk about. First of all, I've just realized why Rosa's appearance doesn't really bother me that much. The reason Quiet over in Metal Gear Solid 5 bothered me much wasn't just that she was wandering around in a bikini. That's normal. Whatever. It's the fact that she bothers to go out of her way to... Well, excuse me. They made her go out of her way to become sexy, to do the poses and the postures and all that fun stuff, to really shove it in your face. It was clearly sex appeal. When it comes to Rosa, she's wearing that outfit, which I admit I just look at it, it's like, okay, whatever. But that's it. That's as far as it goes. It has nothing to do with her character. She is not over-sexualized, blah, 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 blah. So I'm okay with it in that case. It's still not optimal, but at least it's not a negative. Does that make sense? I also will say I actually rather like Rosa's character. I think she is an interesting example of someone who is, in many ways, the proto... she is the proto-Eris, or what Eris was intended to be, basically. Because she is someone who still is distinctly feminine, right? Soft, demure, that kind of a thing, and yet has a fairly strong core underneath that, which is keeping her... strong, which makes... She is still a strong character. She is very determined. She accomplishes many things on her own. She is actually one of the stronger party members. She just... So it has that interesting aspect of both things that are usually emphasized to an extreme, which I like. Next point I want to point out. I personally think that the relationship between Cecil and Rosa works, again, for the basic reason that it isn't overemphasized. It is simply a part of their characters. If I could use Star Trek Voyager as an example of what I'm talking about. In Voyager, their biggest problem with Janeway, in my opinion, this is mostly in seasons 1 through 3, as I've talked about going through the Rumination series. In Voyager, Janeway is the female captain rather than the captain who happens to be ... and have her qualifications afterwards. In other words, the emphasis was especially for the earlier days, especially because of Jerry Taylor, was always on she's a woman, she's a woman, she's a woman, and that was the significance. Not she happened to be female, or the fact that being a female was part of her character, because it is a part of her character. But it should not be the defining trait, in my opinion. You with me? So with Rosa and Cecil, their relationship is not the defining trait of their characters. However, it is a part of their characters. It helps inform the characters. It helps stretching them out to the point where there is an additional connection there. And of course, that also leads into how Kane is a relevance to that. And it also is significant to how Golbez becomes involved in that. It has been argued, and I agree with this reasoning, by the way, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this, Aguiar, that the primary reason why Rosa, or excuse me, I'm saying this wrong, the primary reason why Cecil did not become the target for Zemus's control was because of Rosa. That she was a anchor for him and helped him to stay true to himself and who and what he was, rather than, Golbez, who had no one. So, yes, I do, Grunzer. And if you want to, Fearsome, go ahead. I will allow it. All right, back to the show.
Shall we then, Cecil?
I'll be counting on you, my friend.
Then you've nothing to fear.
We're back. Sorry, I had to check my email, and I didn't feel like showcasing my email to everyone. What was I going to say? Words. I agree with what Samurai said. The idea of the actual relationship between them is definitely a big thing. I will also say that I really like how... And I know I cut away at the wrong second there, but basically, Cecil's mask actually has 2 additional points to it, so he can actually lower his mask. You notice now how he's got the actual mask over the helmet right now, and everything else we've seen, he's actually had the mask open. There's a couple scenes where he specifically closes that mask as like a I'm getting ready for battle, or I'm getting ready to take off, or whatever kind of a thing, and I really like that. It's again a subtle little touch, but it helps emphasize his character, especially because of the fact that what he's doing is literally hiding his face. And what do we know about faceless individuals when it comes to thematic significance and storytelling? Right? I mean, why did they make stormtroopers have those helmets? Also, even though they went with this chibi art style, to remain true to the original, I would go ahead and say that I like the fact that they did a decent job with the animation. They do a lot with it, given how limited they are with regards to the tiny arms and whatnot. Also, I'd just like to say, amazing artwork there. Moving artwork, no less. That is actually drawn, no less. Look at that. God, that's gorgeous. And of course, the 2 moons in the background. The 2 moons are arguably the theme of the entire game, and both of them symbolize, well, basically everything. I mean, we've got the natural versus the artificial, we've got the light versus the dark, we've got the strong and the weak and how they coordinate with each other. All of that can be symbolized just within the picture of the two moons. Love it. Also, this is something that's implied in the original and stated flat out here. Basically, Baron is sitting on top of the heap politically in the entire world. No other country in the world has the raw military might that Baron does. And it's actually considered significant that despite having that ridiculous level of power, politically and militarily, they still are seeking after the crystals. And, like, that's one of the reasons everyone's so worried about it. It's like, you already are in charge of everything. Why? Now. Words. Debating if I should give out any more pluses. Have we seen any bricks lately? Yeah, controller's still not working. Gosh darn it. We're gonna try something real quick. We're gonna figure out what the menu is. Oh yeah. Next thing I want to point out, by the way, because it's freaking amazing. It's mentioned several times, and it's very significant for the development of this story. The increase in monsters. Now, we've seen other games handle monsters and the fact that they are actually a part of the world and the setting of the society and all that fun stuff. FF8 actually had a definitive reason for what monsters are, definitive explanation for what monsters are, where they come from, how they were, etc. FF4 kind of goes with the same explanation if you really look at it. The idea is always implied, yet never stated outright, that the monsters are in fact coming from the moon. Or being summoned down here or whatever, and are simply becoming more prolific as a result of that. However, I was actually thinking about this somewhat recently, a few months ago, and I actually have another interpretation I'd love to share with you guys. I think that monsters are simply a natural part of the world, and they have become more violent and more angry as of late because of the fact that Zemus's ridiculous level of hatred is literally radiating off of the moon and affecting them, influencing them, changing them to the point where they are more violent, so where they go from beasts or animals to monsters. Hence, the term monster is not a literal denominative; it is a qualification. You with me? And I have to admit, I really like that idea, especially because it would make it make sense as to why the monsters would become much less after FF4's conclusion. They would go back to being, beast and whatnot. But anyways, I digress. And yeah, FF10 had an explanation too with the fireflies. I'm trying to figure out what my controls are here, because I'm on the keyboard all of a sudden. Wait, I think I changed. Oh, okay, I found one key. Yay! Let's see if I can find the menu. Whoa! There's the world map. Absolutely love this music. Absolutely, Aguiar. But then again, I have long since held the theory that the four fiends are Eidolons. But that's just me. How do I... Anything? Aha! Tab! Okay, hang on. Save. We're gonna try and get our controller back, because I'd kind of like to have the ability to control my game. Hang on, let's get rid of the monitor again. There we go. Okay. Give me my monitor back. Or give me my controller back, rather. Come on. It's right here. Hang on. Let's see if we can get the controller working in SNES really quick. And if we can, then we'll try to get it working there. Have some music while you wait. Yes, I just have that soundtrack loaded. What do you want from me? Also, I agree that Aqua is a really good hero who happens to be female. One of my favorites, along with Samus, since the game that doesn't exist doesn't exist. Really would like to have my controller back. I really don't want to reboot. I may have to. Yes, Undertale is finished. I may have to reboot. Gosh darn it. Okay, I know what I can do to try and force this without rebooting. Actually, I do. Shadow, hang on. Ah! Next song. Yeah, Terra and Celis, other good examples. See you around, Samurai. Probably because high heels are considered sexy, Third Leg. Although I am just going to go ahead and say that some people have complained that Samus is more sexualized now than she used to be. An actual analysis of the models between her now and her then shows that that's not actually the case. She looks like a muscular female. If you consider that sexualization, whatever. I flat disagree in that case. It's on random, by the way. Come on, work. This is not a negative for controls, because this is actually my fault for, you know, literally dropping the controller. Yes, they are, Fitscott, although it's a Gaiden game, so it doesn't quite count. Yes! We're working! Cancel. Okay. Sorry to cut off in the middle of the song there, but yep. We're back. Wonder if we could get the intro without this audio skipping. Because that'd be awesome. Nope! Audio skip! Audio skip the game. Alright, we're back! Yeah! Haha! Controls! Those who seek the Eidolon of Mist find only death, if tales are true. And... forgive me, Kane, I meant none of this happened. So, this is actually great. I've already given the pluses to the thought bubble, so I can't give another one. But I will say this is awesome, and really... surprising amount of characterization for little Dex. First of all, we get 3 bits of info from this. First of all, Cecil cares about other people. Now, I know that's already kind of been emphasized, but this is arguably the first time that's really put out there, that Cecil really does care about Kane and his people. Second of all, what's Kane thinking about? The challenge. Kane is thinking of it from the professional perspective. The idea of, this is our mission and we have to go to accomplish it. And that is, in many ways, Kane, someone who is far more of a cold fish than someone like Cecil, who is far more of a caring individual. Arguably, Kane would actually be far more of a better soldier than Cecil because he is all business, as Sean just pointed out, and I like that. The third point that has gotten across here is that the implication, and it's not just here, but there's several dialogues that give across the implication, the Eidolon has been there for some time. This is not a recent thing. The Mist Dragon, because that's what it is, the Mist Dragon is a common problem, at least in recent times. Now, I mention this because this is actually really important for theory crafting. Let me explain. We know the Mist Dragon is an Eidolon of Rydia's mother. No, we want the overworld musical, I'm talking. We know the Mist Dragon is the Eidolon for Rydia's mother, right? We know that she's active relatively commonly in the area, which, based on how Eidolons work, means that Rydia's mother is summoning her semi-frequently, okay? I point this out because why would she be doing that? And why would the Mist Dragon be causing death to those in this area? The significance of this is it gives us one of our only clues for understanding exactly how long Kainazo has been barren. Or Cagnazo, as he is in this version. Because I've always been under the impression that that switchover happened pretty recently. Like, we're talking like weeks or months prior to the beginning of the game. But instead, the implication with the Eidolon there, with the fact that that has been a common thing, gives the impression, although the not actual clarification, that the king has been evil for some time, and the people of Mist are probably aware of this, and have probably been trying to defend their borders against incursions, either from monsters or from Baronian soldiers, and ergo, the rumors are circulating that the Eidolon causes death. You with me? No pluses or minuses, I'm just discussing. So, same dialogue there. So the actual layout of the town is different. Except not in the way you'd actually think. By the way, new bricks! Look! They really are. It's new bricks. There's different bricks for the buildings, and then there's different bricks for the walls. Anyways, the different SNES versions actually have a different layout for this town. I don't know why, don't ask, but there are different layouts for Barren Town, even in the SNES version, so this is just a repeat of one of those layouts. Now, as Aguiar points out, the people in town kind of revere Cecil, and yet, there's one other little thing, which we're going to showcase in a moment. Well, first of all, there's that line. How come you're dressed like that? Are you a bad person? Now, of course, that's just a child, so, you know, that doesn't count. I didn't promise Jack, Sigma. This line is more significant. This is an adult. I have done you no ill, I swear it. My taxes are all paid. Well, if it isn't our own Dark Knight, money, surely you jest. Your mere presence here is payment enough. I don't think, even for a millisecond, that Cecil has actually been abusing his position in order to claim power. You know, in order to lord it over the little people. However, as we've already discussed, he is, in all except for heredity, the prince of this kingdom. He is the next in line to the throne. Ergo, it is very logical for people to be reacting this way to him, regardless of whether or not he has been abusing his power, because he's the prince, and because the kingdom as a whole has been cracking down on things more lately, which is the other thing we know about. Also, this is kind of infamous. So this is a woman. Ham. So in the English version, well, okay, this, you'd be surprised how much this has been bandied about back and forth. Shut up, Leslie. I'm playing Undertale. What do you want from me? Genocide route. But no, seriously. This has changed in virtually every single edition that has existed of Final Fantasy IV. In other words, I can't even bring myself. Let's just show you this, because this is what was originally... I actually want to say no, but that doesn't get across the point, so I'm afraid I have to show you yes, just to show you what it is, so... She does that because she's scared you're going to rat her out for speaking ill of the king. Really don't feel like I need to add anything to that, except I totally do! Wait a minute, there's vines on these bricks! Blasphemy! Let me explain a little bit. That's kind of a cultural thing. basically, the Japanese have a different perspective on sexualization in general than we do. So the idea of that being a thing isn't perverted so much as it is comical, if that makes any sense at all. Which it may not, and that's okay. I accept it not making sense, because it doesn't make any sense to me, because I don't think that way. I was not grown up, I was not raised in that culture, right? However, I feel like I'm missing one. Oh well. Words. The point I'm trying to make here is that that's not designed to be some horribly sexy thing. That's designed to be some horribly comical thing. That's it. There's no real complexity there. Yeah, because Japan. That is a valid reasoning. Sometimes. So here's Rose's mother. Must rob everything. That happens later on, third leg. I'm not kidding. Aha! Wait, no, this isn't it. Here we go. So this is the new tutorial room. I basically, for the same reasons I mentioned back in Final Fantasy VI, this isn't really a positive for me so much as that it's not a negative. They pretty much flat out tell you all about how a JRPG works in this room. And they literally just talk about it. They're like, hey, you can use party, and you can swap rows, and you can do this, and blah, 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 blah. And it literally just tells you flat out, here's how to play the game. I still don't think it's a negative, because it's off to the side. It's a room specifically there for training, and it's basically here for people who have never played a Final Fantasy before. Remember how now I mentioned how I could actually go out and, I can tell people FF4DS is the game to start the FF series on? This is a room for people like that, who are like, okay, well, how do I play, you know, a Final Fantasy game? And they can go into this room and talk to them. They had the same thing in 6, they had the same thing in 5, and they had the same thing in 7. I don't think there were any others off the top of my head. Feel free to correct me on that. Maybe 8 had one? So, nice stuff. Again, not a positive, but also not a negative. That's the real thing I wanted to show off there. Also, bricks. Now, this is a subtle touch, and I want to go ahead and showcase this, because this is nice. You can only extrapolate so much from the graphics and style of the town, because this isn't a town. This is... I think my neighborhood is actually larger than this town. In fact, I know my neighborhood is larger than this town. But that's the limitation of the SNES RPG style in a nutshell, right? However, there is one thing we can showcase here. This house is clearly and distinctly larger and more prestigious than all the other houses. It's bigger, it's up on this hill, it's got its own yard, it's got its own well. Now, that's actually a wonderful little touch. Yep, that's what I thought. Here's the public well, down here. If you don't understand the significance of that, having access to your own well is a sign of tremendous prestige and wealth in an era like this one. So again, this is Cid's house, by the way. So it makes sense that the Royal Engineer, who is the individual who has basically invented airships single-handedly, actually Kluya basically taught Cid how to make airships. But the point being, that between Cid and Kluya, airships are a thing, and as a result, airship power has increased Baron to the incredible might it is, blah, 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 blah. And as a result, he is someone who is sufficiently wealthy and well-positioned within the Baron social structure to have this wealth and prestige to himself. That's another nice little touch. The fact that Cid actually stands up for certain individuals in the Baron kingdom, but not the kingdom as a whole. Also, did you guys know there's a chocobo forest right here? I didn't until I started speedrunning this game. I'm serious. Alright, let's see how it handles combat. It's the same thing as it always was. That looks like 30 FPS. What does everyone else think? I mean, I'm streaming at 30 FPS, but I've heard a lot of people say that this is 15 FPS. That does not look 15 FPS to me. Anybody? I definitely I want actual feedback here. I know you guys are loving talking your discussion, and I hate to distract you with the game I'm playing. Is it about 20? Man, I don't know. I can tell when it goes up, not when it goes down. Well, actually, that's a lie. The difference between 30 and 15 is significant enough that I can usually see it. I mean, that's clearly not 60, for example, but I don't know. We need to turn that way the hell up, so... Hey, I've just been letting you do your thing, Fitzcott. No judgment here. Well, if it's less than 30, I honestly can't tell. And I mention that especially because it's the single biggest complaint I have heard about the Steam version of the game. That oh my god, the frame rate in combat is terrible, and I'm trying to see it. Now, this is speaking as someone who prefers 60 or higher FPS, by the way, and really high refresh rate, which is actually separate from frames per second, but we're not going to talk about that here. I mean, I'm one of those people who absolutely says I can tell the difference. And I'm not seeing much of a difference here. Maybe it's just because this is how it is in the DS version? I don't know. I don't know. We'll keep going with it. See if that's a positive or negative or nothing. Normally well, okay. I'm debating giving a plus to the game for the fact that it's got the, it actually shows the weapon and armor you have equipped. And then I was immediately like, well, no, I shouldn't do that because it did that in the original, even on this NES. But then it's like, well, no, actually, that's kind of neat. You know what? I will give a positive to this. Well, actually, should I give it a positive? Debate. They show you the exact stat changes when you level up in this version. I'm trying to think of how many other RPGs do that. There's a few. Earthbound does it, for example. But most RPGs just say, you leveled up. And Kingdom Hearts does that, although you only get like one stat change per level up in Kingdom Hearts. So, yeah. Not really sure. Naming way! What negative, Sebo? Where's the frame rate problem? I have not seen one yet. After we spoke, I said about mapping a new life from the course of my life, one that would allow me to help people, but having undertaken the task of mapping, the name of Naming Way now seems rather inappropriate. Naming Way became Mapping Way, the cartographer. Oh, right, let me give you this. Yay, the Wayfarer's map. So this is actually, you know what, this definitely gets a positive. Okay, so, hang on. This button. Okay, so in the DS version, the actual DS version, the map's actually on the bottom screen. Here you have to actually hit it like this. But this is awesome. First of all, there are several games that do this. Remember I mentioned this in Chrono Trigger, actually? Where it showed the map. But the only reason to fill it out was for OCD's sake, right? In FF4DS, there's two things that make it an actual positive. Number one, it saves between New Game Pluses. So in the next game, it'll actually save which maps I have filled out to what extent. And you actually get a reward for finishing out a map. If I 100% this map, I will get an item for it. You got it, Baronessa. So I think this is a definite gameplay plus here for the map mechanic. What happened, Darkrai? I mean, I'm assuming you're saying something recently. So again, more dialogue here. Whoops, whoops. Yeah, I'm actually curious too what happened. Now, remember I have to review this game basically on its own merits. So we might be getting a negative to the gameplay pretty soon. I'm still debating exactly how to... That is horrible. I know you're never going to watch this, TB, but my heart goes out to you, man. Cancer is a horrible, disgusting, virulent, terrible thing that should be expunged from reality, and I'm very sorry for every person who has to suffer through it. Yeah. I don't even have anything else to say about that. I got nothing. It sucks. It just sucks. I'm going to showcase something. I'm curious what it looks like on the stream here. So this is a representation of 15 FPS versus 60 FPS, or rather, 30 FPS. The top one is 30 FPS. The bottom one is 15 FPS. And in the background, we've also got 30 FPS. Now, I say 30, even though you notice I have it set to 1620, because I'm streaming at 30 FPS. So, looking at the stream window, which is what you are seeing, the maximum we are outputting is 30 FPS. So this right here, this top one is 30 FPS. This is a great way, I actually use sites like this semi-regularly. This is a great way to get across the difference between frame rates to really showcase the difference in your eyes. Now see, to me, the difference here between 30 and between 15 is actually very distinct, which is again why I question why it says it's 15 in combat, because it doesn't look like that to me. We'll see when we get to like a more complicated enemy or whatever. Maybe it'll be more obvious there. It could be 15 FPS. It is totally possible. I really don't know. I will say that it doesn't actually bother me at all, like I said. So, the single biggest negative I hear about this game is not a negative for me, because I didn't even notice it. If people hadn't said anything about it, I wouldn't have even known about it. Now, if you have a terrible computer, this is 5 FPS. And 10. Now, I feel 10 is pretty jerky at that point. Now, and of course I can't show you like this, for example. The difference in smoothness between that is just huge for my eyes. But of course you can't see that because you're stuck at 30 frame rates because of the stream. But anyways. Oh, Planet Base has been released right now. Huh. I believe you, Sean. It's just like I said, it's not bothering me. We'll see. A boss monster might be a little different, because this is something FF4DS does actually like. Trash fights are from the left, boss fights are this angle, from behind the enemy, which I actually think is really cool and helps emphasize that you're in a boss fight, and also helps showcase more of the boss. It allows them to have larger bosses and show more detail on them, right? Fraps is a video capture software that I do not use. Ow, wow. I didn't know Mist Dragon was weak to darkness. That's interesting. Ah, crap. I need to turn darkness off now. Ah, we'll just use a potion. We got plenty. See you around, Darkrai. Yeah, Fraps is basically the original video capture program, and it kind of sucks in several ways. Okay, Cecil's dead. Good job, Kane. Rose is all yours now. So, gameplay design. This is another example of what Square has done since forever, basically. In other words, tutorializing through boss fights. And successive bosses basically introducing new mechanics so that later on they could have even stronger bosses who introduce those mechanics and take them in full force. This is one of the simplest, most basic forms of boss mechanic that exists. The don't hit them at certain times boss. We actually already talked about this in Chrono Trigger. You know, every now and again it's like, oh crap. Yeah, so, bad timing there, but, oh, we didn't die, thank God. Fun fact, I've actually died on this fight in the DS version, the hard mode version. No, I will not, Luslins, I spit on it. Duh, duh, duh. So yeah, this is like really, really, really basic strategy here, but it is still strategy. It is still something that, you know, I like how they did it, so I think I will go ahead and say a positive. Now, you see this right here? This is definitely a positive. What do you mean, Noxamillion? We're only like a few steps into it. We haven't started doing I, it's not rated low. It's still being rated. I just started. Anyway, so gameplay design. The fact that you can see the accuracy on your attack, the fact that you can see its HP if you happen to know its HP, if you happen to have scanned it, you can see its weaknesses and absorbs if you happen to know that, etc., etc. I like that. I like the info. I like info. That is a good thing. So we're going to add another plus to gameplay design for the amount of information on display. And we're going to go and give another plus to gameplay for the overall way that they approach teaching you how dungeons and how boss fights and how mechanics work. And then we're immediately going to take away a gameplay. Pause. Here's why. I love this game. I really do. But there is no denying that it is a little bit on the grindy side, especially when it comes to just playing the combat of the game, which is very, very threadbare. Now, that may be an additional plus later on because of the way they do certain boss fights. In fact, I almost guarantee it will be pretty much by about the time we get to Mount Ordeals. But for most of the trash, which is a decent bulk of the game, combat is just there. Now, that is just my opinion. But unlike, say, FF6, which flows a lot better, or FF7, which also flows a lot better and has better flash to it, or certain action RPGs, which I find more entertaining, I just do not enjoy the combat of FF4 on the face of it when it comes to trash fights, because it's just bleh. There are some exceptions of this, I will point out. There are exceptions to this. For example, basically once you get to the moon, a lot of the trash fights basically become boss fights for all intents and purposes, and you have to actually think your way through them. The red giant and the behemoths and stuff like that. But for now, because we're not there yet, we are definitely yeah, that's why that negative is there. Sorry, guys. Just yeah, it's actually one of the only negatives I've given out so far. Someone get that bot. Thank you. You know what? I'm sorry. There actually does need to be another plus to the graphics. I'm going to do that really quick here while she goes into the mist again. The plus for the graphics is the angle thing I already talked about. I already gave my reasoning for the plus. In other words, the fact that the boss fights are shown at the angle to really emphasize them and really emphasize the significance, blah, 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 blah. That's a plus, definitely. Absolutely. I could give a plus for the transparent menus because I think that's awesome, but no. I much prefer having a health bar as indicative. In fact, the very first thing I make a point to get and then learn and then equip in Kingdom Hearts is scan, so I can see enemies' health. Because otherwise, it drives me crazy not knowing my enemy's health. Like, it literally bothers me not knowing how close I am towards finishing, finishing off a boss or a mob or whatever. Ah, crap. I may be about to die. I haven't saved. Wait, no, I have saved. It's just, we're gonna lose basically all of the progress in here. Ooh! We lived. Speaking of undisciplined kids, who here wants to hear about an idiot? An idiot who... Well, I wouldn't say they nearly died, but they nearly became crippled. Today. I'm speaking in this, like, false, positive tone because I'm actually really pissed off about this. And I don't want to talk like that. I don't want to talk in a violent, angry tone. Because, god damn it. That's true, Enigma. That is true. I'm not going to give it pluses or minuses for not knowing the boss health, though. So this is actually kind of neat. You know how I mentioned that this is a really basic form of strategy? I will point out that it's actually forcing me to change my strategy. Because of the speed I have the game set to, I cannot get 2 jumps in between its mist phases. So I have to actually do jump and then attack in order to get 2 attacks in per phase. Or I could do jump and an item. Both of those are options. No, Minizan is fine. There was an idiot! No, this is real life. This happened... I was in the car when we went to get lunch earlier. We went out to get lunch, and an idiot was crossing the road against the light, okay? Now, in the area we're at... Oh, hey, we won. Death thing. Call me weird, but I've always had a fondness for the death animations of bosses in, like, old RPGs, you know what I mean? Call me weird. Yay, Kane level, which is great, because I'm about to ditch him. Hang on. There it is. So we completed the map, and we got 5 potions for it. You can get some good stuff from completing maps. It's actually really nice. I think we're fine to continue, actually. So, this kid, I say kid, it was someone who was in high school, so, you know, 14 to 18. This kid was crossing the road, again, at the against the light. Did not have right-of-way. Now, technically in the area we're at, if you are a pedestrian, you automatically have right-of-way over a vehicle. I say technically, that's not the legal law, but that is the way that the law tends to lean, you know what I mean? The interpretation of the law, in other words. So this kid is trying to cross the street, and we're turning basically into them. We start turning, and as it happens, the person who is driving, who is not me, notices that there's someone in the way and stops. Now, we stop. We're sitting there in the intersection at this point in time, by the way, and the kid looks at us, and the guy who's driving just kind of starts waving his hand like, go on, it's okay. And I want to stress that's the inclination. There was no anger. There was no like, oh, get the hell out of my way. It was more like, go ahead. I have stopped. You can go ahead and pass. The kid then started talking loudly about the crazy drivers and how they had right-of-way, and slowed down. And would anyone like to tell me the 3 primary reasons why that is incredibly stupid? That's just fun. Yeah, I'm not fond of entitlement. Let's talk about the first reason why that's stupid, just really quick. First reason. If the driver had not been paying attention, he was, of course, he's a good driver, but if he had been, I don't know, a driver who wasn't paying attention and hadn't noticed that they were crossing against the light, might not have hit the brakes in time. Might have clipped them. Might have flat out run over them. So that's the first wrong thing. That's the first stupid thing. Second stupid thing. Most people don't understand this. Some of you do, and I'm sorry for those of you who do, but when you are in the moment, you are basically insane. In other words, you aren't thinking with a fully sane, logical mind when you have that instant, that second of anger. You know what I'm talking about? When you are in the moment, what you do may not be what you would normally do. Certain people can simply... I'm no exception to this. People can get so angry in the moment, or so upset, or so hurt, or whatever, that they will do things they do not want to do, that they do not agree with, and that they will regret. So, let's assume that it's another driver who manages to notice them and then stops. Then they decide to be a dick about it right in front of the car. How many people out there do you think... Well, I mean, I shouldn't say that way, but it is entirely possible that another person who does not have enough self-control might have simply mashed the gas, even just for a second, because that's all it would take. 1 second of mashing the gas out of anger, and then a second later realizing what they did and hitting the brakes, because the actual person, out of the moment, does not want to hurt them, does not want to run over them. But that's a second after they hit the gas. You understand? So that's the second reason they were retarded and stupid. And the third reason is they were actually a dick about it, which is just provocation. As my mom used to tell me, there may be monsters outside the house, but that's no reason to open the window. Or to use another term, it's usually referred to as tempting the devil. In other words, don't open yourself. Don't leave yourself wide open for that kind of problem to happen by actively taunting the person who is in a position where they might be able to run over you. So here's this cutscene in the DS version.
The ring!
It's actually called Ring of Bomb, which actually took me a surprisingly long period of time to figure out what that meant. In other words, Ring of Summoning Bomb.
This is what we were sent to do?
He wished this village torched.
But why? Why?
Why? Note he doesn't have the full mask on right now, by the way. He has half of his mask on. Just pointing it out. Now, this is really messed up. I just feel like pointing this out. So, first of all, the obvious implication that the summoners were either going to be a problem for Zemus's plans, or were actively contesting Zemus's plans by going against Baron. One of the two. But the interesting thing here, is Rydia's mother died before we got to the village, right? We killed her by killing the Eidolon, by killing the Mist Dragon. So I want you to picture Rydia, who is sobbing over her mother's corpse, and then the fire breaks out, and then the village is destroyed. Now, I will admit that why was hamming it up a bit, but it is still important. So I think I'm going to call that a positive and a negative. It's negative because, why? But it is a positive because that is the moment in which Cecil finally snaps, because he's already questioning what he's had to do. He's already having moral and ethical doubts about his job, about his perspective, about what he's been doing, and the lives he has cost, and all that horribleness. And then he walks into a village, a non-combatant village, and wipes it out. I've said it before, and I've said it again. If you're in the military, civilians are off limits. You do not attack non-combatants. So yeah, Cecil really, really does not like what just happened. And the best part? He did it unknowingly and can't undo it.
Mother, you can't die. Just because your dragon did.
I've heard of their lot. Men who can conjure Eidolons. Summoners.
Then the dragon we slew was her mother's?
You're the ones who killed her dragon?
Forgive us. We'd no idea this would happen to your mother.
His Majesty sent us to eliminate every last one of these people.
No.
Foul work, to be sure. We'll need to kill the girl as well.
Cain!
It's her or us, Cecil.
She's a child!
You'd betray your king?
Betray him? Any man who'd wish for this is no king of mine.
I thought you might say that.
Then...
I owe His Majesty much, but not so much I'd soil the Dragoon's name in his.
Then you're with me.
Baron's army is the mightiest in the world. Our flight means nothing if we remain alone. We must treat with other nations, share what we've seen. And Rosa, she must share our flight.
And she will. Thank you.
I'm not doing this for you.
Huh?
Quickly, we mustn't linger here. What of the girl?
We take her with us. Come. It's not safe here. Take my hand.
No!
We've no time. Use force if you must.
Stay away!
Wait!
this is actually some nice gameplay and story integration here, I feel. Also, summons look pretty cool, I think, in 4DS. Not super awesome, just cool. Pretty much on level with FF7, I think. This is really cool looking. I think we're going to give another plus to graphics just for this cutscene. This is a really cool cutscene. And the way they portray the actual overworld map splitting and the village on fire. And they basically rendered that map we just saw just for that cutscene. So, yeah, I think that deserves a positive. Couple thoughts really quick. I talked about this during the lore run. People have argued back and forth for years about whether or not Kain was already mind-controlled prior to this event, or if he becomes mind-controlled after this event. After having rethought about it and gone into it to time, I'm still kind of torn, but I personally do think he was after. That this was still just Kain, and part of the reason why is because of his attitude when it comes to Rydia and the town. Again, all business, cares about Rosa, obviously cares about Cecil, even though he's got the rivalry thing. He's, in general, the point is he is still very much Kain, you know, the professional soldier, the dragoon, etc. None of that is Kain, the person who has taken it a few steps too far, in my opinion. But it is worth noting that that could be Kain, the mind-controlled. We don't actually know. And none of the thought bubbles give away that one. So again, this is the section I mentioned, which is arguably one of my favorite things to extrapolate in this whole game. Cecil, injured, dragging Rydia, injured, across a desert by himself. Honestly, you could make an entire game out of that. Now this is a great quote, and this really emphasizes the plight Cecil is in. An orphan, if not by my hand, then by my deeds. Ignorance is an excuse. Cecil is not an evil person by any stretch of the imagination, in my opinion. But he is also, part of why he is a good person is because he takes ownership of his actions. He did directly cause the death of Rydia's mother and of the people of Mist in general. He may not have known it, he may not have intended it, but he still did cause it, and he owns up to that, and I like that. That's part of what I like about his character development. This is also the beginning of Rydia's character development, which starts in such a great way, but we'll talk more about that. I gotta get going, guys. I have one final thing I want to talk about here, and that's the fact that I'm an idiot. Hang on. So... oh good, I do have a tent, thank God. I was gonna say, I'm screwed if I have 1 health and no potions. Oh, I should have had 5 potions after the map. Anyways, yeah, it would be like, Ico, Enigma Machine. Of course, I don't actually like Ico that much. I don't have anything yet. I swear I had something else to talk about really quick, and I actually don't remember what it is. Oh! That was the other thing. God, I'm just sitting here like, what the hell? We do find out much later, basically after we get the airship, that, lol, Aguirre, that, there are survivors of the Village of Mist situation. But, there we go. But, I do really feel for the people who are just literally walking around in an everyday, normal day, and then death just kind of happens. By the way, different bricks for the Sand Town. I'm only pointing it out because you guys want me to point out all the bricks for some reason. But I will point out this. They didn't have to do this. If you remember the original SNES, they used the same tile set for every town. So the same walls, the same floors, etc. They didn't here. They actually had different ones for the desert area of Kaipo, which I think is actually really awesome that they went that extra mile. Also, I'd just like to say this place really feels like an oasis to me. I don't think it really gets a plus for that, but it does absolutely have that, you know, oasis amidst the desert feel to it, and I like that. It's great atmosphere. Also, note how he can't even rest or sleep. He's just watching over her. Can you imagine the guilt he must feel? I mean, can you genuinely imagine what it would feel like to murder someone's parent and then half their town without wanting to? Or meaning to? Imagine, if I could use a weird example, you were playing through Undertale and you did some of the horrible things in Genocide Route without meaning to. You accidentally did it. And then it hit you full force with the weight of what you did. By the way, there's different bricks in this room. I also like this. If I can diverge for just a moment. Some people seem to think that saying I'm sorry makes everything better. And if you say you're sorry, the other person should forgive you. I've always believed that neither of those are true. You may be sorry, but that doesn't mean the other person forgives you. You don't say you're sorry because they'll forgive you. You say you're sorry because you're sorry. And you say you're sorry because you mean it. Not to try and make things better. Not to try and, get them forgiveness. Not to try and do whatever. It is because of the reality of how you feel. So I like the fact that Cecil doesn't even try to get forgiveness for this. Doesn't even try to say, please forgive me or anything like that. He is simply sorry. And all he asks is to take her someplace safe. Attempting recompense, basically. Yeah, me too, Aguiar. No kidding. Now, if I can pause for just a moment. This is almost a classic call to... the first half of FF4, pretty much up to Mount Ordeals, is pretty much your classic... I forget what it's called. It's not the call to hero or whatever. But there's a name for it. I can't think of it off the top of my head. I'm sorry, I can't think of the trope name. But the idea is, the hero redeeming themselves to become a hero, basically, kind of a situation. Everything that happened so far has pretty solidified Cecil, but it hasn't actually 100%. He is not committed to this goal yet. This is what commits him to this goal. This is what pushes him the final percent, or 10% or whatever, to the point where he is like, nope, now I'm willing to go to any lengths. I'm willing to do anything necessary in order to ensure that I have done what needs to be done. Notice, and I mentioned that here because you notice he specifically tries to explain first. He specifically tries to explain, well, no, that you have to understand this is just an innocent girl, blah, blah, blah. And it is so he is still open to the idea of negotiating with both Baron and the King. But then the General contradicts him. These orders come directly from the King. The inhabitants of Mist represent a threat to us all. They must not be allowed to live. So this is why I say this is the final step, because up until this point he was still willing to allow it into his mind that Baron was not his enemy. And now he is willing to raise his sword against his own fellows. Which, I want you to stress again, not only is he commander in their military, he's also the prince of that kingdom. And he's a man who doesn't like killing in general, and is generally a good guy. This is a pretty significant move for him. I'm debating giving another plus to the game because of the gameplay story integration here. If you don't know what I mean, if you kill all the soldiers, the general runs away. If you kill the general, the soldiers will not attack, because they don't have leadership and he has no one defending him. Obviously, the much, much easier way to do that is simply to get rid of the soldiers. Actually, darkness is not an AoE in this one. It's different than in the GBA version and the original SNES version. Note how the girl brings this up. I almost wish that Rydia actually understood what just happened, the significance of what Cecil just did for her. She doesn't, of course, but it would be nice if she did, to really understand how much he just did for her. But regardless, she speaks, says she's sorry. Hello, Giacomo. Ironically, I'm about to stop streaming for the day, but I will be back tomorrow. So he, he's like, look, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Here's Rydia. I called her Rydia for years, and then this game came out and they pronounce it Rydia. I'm still trying to get used to the new pronunciation. So I keep mentally correcting myself. So in case you're not aware, in the original edition, well, I shouldn't say that. One of the earlier versions of Darkness is you do Darkness, it eats some of your health, and it does an AoE attack to the entire enemy party. Just it's really useful, even though it eats your health. Now, in this version, it's a buff. You turn on the buff of Darkness, and each of your attacks does Darkness damage, does additional damage, and also hurts you for doing it. Oh, that sucks, Giacomo. Don't worry, we're going to go through the whole thing. I hope you will join me with at least some of it. Now, one of the things I like is that basically everyone here just kind of is really happy to see Cecil and party, and they actually give reasons for that. I know I'm going through the text really quickly because I read really quickly, but one of the points they make is that the increase in monsters and hostility, as mentioned before, has made it so that the trade has gone down significantly. And if you think about it, an Oasis town kind of lives and breathes off of trade. They've got water, and therefore food, and that's basically it. But this is kind of a hub of several locations on the geography of the map, and therefore would be valuable as a trade hub. Having that trade go down is a really bad thing, and I mention it because it's a quietly little way to re-emphasize something they said flat out in FF1. If you'll remember, one of the points in FF1 is with the crystals gone, everything's going to rot. The earth is going to rot, the sea is going still, etc. In this, we see that even if, for some reason, Zemus was contained and wasn't going to destroy the world with the Giant of Bab-Il, his mere presence, either because he's generating the monsters or because his hatred is affecting them, whichever theory you ascribe to, both ways ensure that this world will slowly rot away, and these societies will break down as the monsters get worse and worse, and everything, all the building blocks of civilization just kind of fall down. It is actually an apocalypse scenario. It's just a slow apocalypse rather than a sudden zombie horde, right? So, again, I cannot undo what I have done, Rydia, but I will make amends. Meanwhile, she's thinking, he looks so sad. I'm sorry, I'm going to say this real quick. He looks so sad. Imagine that if summer never came, Shadow. One might say that that's happening in Primus right now. So, mapping way. Well, as luck would have it, he accidentally dropped all his maps and pens into that huge fissure that opened up near the Valley of Mist. Having lost the ability to map, the name Mapping Way seems rather inappropriate. But I don't know what to do next. I'm taking some time to reevaluate my life now. He is now Living Way, the Vagrant. He's just been spending his days looking over pages of this bestiary with no particular trade to call his own. And now we have access to the bestiary. Bum, 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 bum. I'm not going to list this as a plus, but I do like this. In case it's not really clear, the bottom item on the list is their most rare. Basically, they have 4 possible drop. They can drop if you kill them. Common, uncommon, rare, and super rare is basically what it comes down to. And it shows the exp they give, the guild they give. It's information. It shows the area they're in. I can't quite call this a positive, but I do like a good application of a bestiary, and this is a pretty good bestiary, as far as bestiaries go. Chrono Trigger had a good one, too. But I didn't actually plus the Chrono Trigger one, so I'm not going to plus this one. Yep. Actually, you know what? We're going to go ahead and cut off here, because I really need to get on with stuff. So, I will continue this in-depth review of Final Fantasy IV tomorrow. I hope you'll join me. I feel like I actually have less to talk about so far, but I will be doing my best to really tear this game apart as we go through it, and if not, at least it'll be a Lorerunner, and maybe you'll enjoy that. I don't know, whatever. Either way, I'll see you guys tomorrow.